All right. Shalom, everyone. Hag Sameach. Um, I'm amazed that we're home by 7:05. It has been so busy. Um, getting not only leading up to the Passover, then doing the two Seders, but the cleanup. Getting everything done. We're just getting started. I hope that y'all had as good a Seder or Seders as what we have. I'd like to give some announcements first. Um, Brad Gaskell had his surgery a week ago on Monday. Okay, so 8 days ago. Uh, During the Seder, everything was going great. Everything was going wonderful. I spoke to him twice during the week. Spoke to his wife, Cindy. He was doing excellent. During the Seder, we got a message that there was a problem. His eye socket where the graft was made, the skin graft, it was starting to swell. And the doctors were concerned, everybody was concerned. Uh, we got that, and it came in by text. And one of the people there had received the text and they brought it up to me. It was about 45 minutes after the text had been sent. We stopped the Seder. We prayed right on the spot. Um, then we picked up back up and started back up. And about the time that we prayed, the swelling started going down. And in fact, it went down so much. The plan was originally, before the eyes started to swell, they were going to send him home. Uh, Initially, they were going to send him to a rehab and then he would go home, but they were going to send him home. And then with the swelling of the eye, all of that kind of got put on hold. But it had so gone down by the next morning, they sent him home the next day. And Cindy told me he's doing great. Um, One of the things that he said when I talked to him earlier in the week is that for the first time in 8 months, he's not having headaches. He still has pain, and the majority of the pain is not from the operation they did on his face, but rather on his thigh, where they took the skin for the graft. But he's doing well. I haven't spoken to him today, but I haven't received any messages other than that. So, and I did speak to them or to her yesterday. Now, Nick Scarpinato is doing great. He's amazing though with the therapy or the physical therapy that he is so far ahead. He's just blazing through it. Uh, Grayson Jeffords. Um, I spoke to them during the week, and his surgery is coming up on May 14th. That'll be the 30th day of the Omer. And they're very optimistic, but please be praying for them. If the cancer is there, then it will be a very serious operation. So please be praying for them. Last week I mentioned about Don Lannon had had um, had a stroke, and it's complicated because his wife has some serious health problems, and he's been the caretaker for her. But I spoke to his son Clint, and uh, what is affected is his speech. Now, he's able to speak, but he doesn't always. You can't always tie together what he's saying. Um, but I got a text from him by accident. He had called me by accident, and then he sent me a text that it was a mistake and an accident. But he said that his father was doing great. Okay, so uh, do please continue praying for Justin Hutz, for his family. Um, we need to pray for his mother, his father, and um, and his sister Raina. and all of them, his father has kidney cancer, stage 4. His mother had a stroke, and very, very serious situation, even life-threatening. And then his sister Raina, who has cerebral palsy, is blind, is totally dependent upon care. She is in a facility, and I understand she's doing well, but they need some really serious prayer. They need some financial help. There are a number of things that are there. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. Okay. We have had to change the station several times, so you might have done that in the past, but please, that you would do it again. And if you would like to get the our newsletter that we send out, you can email it office@jerusalemtemplestudy.com, I believe. All right. Tonight, I'm very excited about what we're going to go into, because this has been a controversial topic for years and years. And the question is, and I've got to bring up my PowerPoint. Give me a second. The question has been whether Yeshua had a Passover Seder, whether he had a Passover Seder the night before he was slain. Okay, now the problem is that he was slain on the 14th of Nisan. Okay, and the Seder is held on the night of the 15th. And so you certainly have all the elements that are mentioned that you could identify with the Seder, but I believe what we're going to show tonight will answer a lot of your questions, a whole lot. So I'm going to just jump into this, and we'll see what we come up with. All right. All right, so the question was Yeshua's last meal a Pesach Seder? If it is, how could it? How could it be? And the second thing is, if it was a Seder, was it a legal Seder? And what I'm referring to is according to Halakhic. Okay, so this is from the book of Mattathiyahu, or you might know it as Matthew. And we're going to compare this to Mark. We'll also look at what we have in Luke, and then eventually we'll look at Yochanan. Now, I narrowed this down to just the essentials, okay? But it says, now it came to pass when Yeshua had finished all these things that he said to his Talmudim. Now, what it says there is disciples. I changed the word from disciples to Talmudim. A Talmud is a student, okay? He was their rabbi, they were his students. You know that after 2 days is the Pesach. After 2 days is the Pesach. And we'll see exactly the same thing repeated in other texts. And the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified. Then the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders of the people assembled at the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas, and plotted to take Yeshua by trickery and kill him. It's very interesting the way that this is worded. The chief priests, the scribes, and the elders of the people. The elders of the people would indicate this Sanhedrin, but they are assembling. This is not an official meeting of the Sanhedrin, because it's taking place at the home of Joseph Caiaphas, who was the high priest, and plotted to take Yeshua by trickery and kill him. By the way, let me mention that the head of the Sanhedrin is not going to be the high priest. The head of the Sanhedrin was Yochanan ben Zakkai. Okay, that was his name. He was the Nasi. And by him not being mentioned here, what we can pretty much be assured of is that certain members of the Sanhedrin were present, and I would say that these would be from the Beit Shammai faction. Okay, Beit Shammai, the house of Shammai, the school of Shammai, were in control of the Sanhedrin at that time. There were members, in particular Hillel, who had been the previous Nasi, was from Beit Hillel, and I believe that they would be totally opposed to everything that happened here. And it says at the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas, and plotted to take Yeshua by trickery and kill him. By the way, if you go to the Herodian mansions, I believe that we can identify exactly where this took place. But they said, not during the feast or the Hag, not during the Hag, meaning Hag Hamatzah, okay, lest there be an uproar among the people. Okay, so that's Mattityahu 26, 1 through 5. And so going to Mark, after 2 days, it was the Pesach and the festival of unleavened bread. And the chief priest and the scribes sought how they might take him by trickery and put him to death. But they said, not during the feast, not during the Hag, but lest there be an uproar of the people. Basically the same thing that we had in the book of Mattityahu. Now, this is Luke 22, 7. Okay, so we've looked at Mattityahu, we've looked at Mark, this is Luke, and it will say the same things, but we have where it says, then came the day of unleavened bread when the Passover must be killed. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. That doesn't make sense. Then came the day of unleavened bread. You actually kill the Pesach on the 14th of Nisan. And then that evening after dark begins Hag HaMatzah. Okay, and you say, oh, well, it's counting the day from daylight all the way past dark into midnight. That's not the way that it works on the Jewish calendar. And what we have that is there in these Gospels, as well as the rest of the New Testament, is going to run on the Jewish calendar. So let's go back to the slides, and we have what is called the Beor, okay, the Beor Chametz. This is the point that you have to have all the leaven out of your home, okay, out of your possession. And so I put a note down here. By the way, I want to look at the Greek first, and I cannot pronounce the Greek. I'm not going to try to pronounce the Greek, but it says, then came the day of unleavened bread. Okay, actually, it does not say that in the Greek. Basically, what it says, then came the day of without leaven. Okay, and in Hebrew, that is the Be'er Hametz. Okay, it is not the first day of the festival of Hag HaMatzah. It is the Hag HaMatzah will start in the evening, but earlier in the day is when you have the Be'er Hametz, when you were to do it. Okay, when you were to have all the leaven out. We are told. Let's read the note, and I want to tell you something. The beer, the destroying one's hametz. This, by the way, is from the Chabad website. All appropriate methods of destruction, like burning, are included in this category. On the night preceding the 14th of Nisan, a form of bakhat hametz, the casting out or the search for the hametz, is conducted by candlelight. But then the next day, which is still the 14th, then they will take whatever hametz, they go to the synagogue, they publicly burn it, and so forth. Okay. Now, here we're told in the Mishnah. We're told in the Mishnah how this was done. That on the day of the 14th. Okay, so we're going to have two big activities that take place on the day of the 14th. One is the Bir Chametz, the other is the slaying of the Pesach lambs. All right. And so about Bain HaBoker, between the mornings, they on what is called the Itztaba. Okay, so the Itztaba, let me see if I can show you a color one. This is called the royal stoa, okay, or the royal portico. But in Hebrew, it's called the Itztaba, which means a double portico. And you see that we have a portico here on top of a portico here, okay? And so they, on the roof of the Itztaba, and actually trying to figure this out because it has to be a slanted roof like we see here, but they didn't have the tiles back at that time. It's not until the 2nd century that they had these red tiles. And so this is something they've learned since this drawing was done. But they place on a table that is set here on the roof of the Itztaba that people can see from the lower city, from all over. You can see this. They set two barley loaves. And so the barley loaves have chametz in them. And so at Bain, that's done in daylight. At Bain, Bain HaBoker, between the mornings, that would be about 9 o'clock in the morning, they're going to remove one of the loaves. Okay, and so at noon, they remove the second loaf. Okay, and so when that second loaf disappears, then all the people are to have all of their chametz out of their homes and out of their possession. So I want to go back to this slide, and this is an example, I believe, very much of a mistranslation that has brought confusion. So instead of saying, then came the start of Hakamatza, the day of unleavened bread, the way it's usually understood, is rather the day of the Hametz, the removal of the Hametz, which is the same day when the Passover or the Pesach must be killed. All right, going forward. This is from Luke 22:1-7. We have another reference in here to the Bir Hametz. Now, the festival of unleavened bread, Hakamatza, drew near, which is called the Pesach. And the chief priests and the scribes sought how they might kill him. Again, this is the full passage from Luke 22. We saw one verse from it a moment ago, for they feared the people. Then Hasatan entered Yehuda. Okay, I'm going to, as much as possible, put in the Hebrew names, surnamed Iscariot. Now, Yehuda, the Iscariot comes from Hasakari. Okay, so who are the Sakari? The Sakari are going to be part of the groups that are mainly rebelling against Rome. They are the most violent. They are literally assassins. The Hasakari comes from the term for a small dagger, small sword that they would hide under their garments. They would walk into a crowd and they would commit assassinations. Now, primarily what they were committing assassination, these guys were basically terrorists. They're committing assassinations against Jews that have business dealings, that have friends that are Romans and so forth. And so there is a theory that Yehuda HaSakari, they're called zealots, okay? And we call all of the ones that were trying to rebel against Rome the zealots, but the Sakari are the super zealots. And so it reminds me in when Great Britain controlled Israel, you had the Haganah, the Irgun, and you had what was called by the British the Stern Gang. The Leahy. The Leahy were the most radical. Okay, they were the ones that that would do a similar thing to what the Sicarii are doing, but the Zealots had that name because they had the Maccabees as their model. And the Maccabees had this during their time, they were faced against overwhelming odds, and Hashem came and were with the Maccabean warriors, and they defeated the Greeks. But why? Because the Maccabean warriors were not only men that picked up the sword, they picked up the Tanakh. They picked up the Torah. There was a move for repentance among those that were fighting, and they had a zeal for God. And so the Zealots took their name from the Maccabee example. Okay, and so, but their whole thing was that if they overthrew the Roman armies of the Roman occupation, then Hashem would send the Mashiach. And so their zeal was to bring in the kingdom of God, but it was the wrong way. It was being done by them, not by Hashem. And so there is a theory, a paper that came out several years ago, that the reason that Judas Iscariot betrayed Yeshua and turned him over to first the high priest and so forth, and then they in turn turned him over to the Romans, was because he was hoping that in this action the Mashiach would come. I don't know if the theory has any merit, but it was an interesting sidetrack. Okay, and then Hasatan entered Yehuda, surnamed Hasakari, who was numbered among the 12. So he went his way and conferred with the chief priests and captains how he might betray him to them. And they were glad and agreed to give him money. Actually, the amount of money that they gave him was 30 shekels of silver, or 30 pieces of silver, not shekels. And it's very interesting because every day there was a tremendous amount of blood that came from the carbonate in the Holy Temple, and it went into a drain. This drain is called the Ha'ama. And we're told that the drain, the Ha'ama, went out the water gate, and then it went to the east and went into the Kidron Valley, and went down the valley all the way to the south towards the Taropian Valley. And the other side of the Taropian Valley is called Akel Dama, the field of blood. And it received its name from the blood that came from the carbonate. Now, that is the property of the temple. And so the soil was blood enriched, very valuable to those that raised crops. And so it was sold. And so how much did it cost to buy a load of this soil? It was 30 shekels. And so when Judas comes back following Yeshua's death, he throws the coins back in and said, "This is blood money," which is literally what the money from the sale of the blood-sucked soil was from. And he in turn hung himself at Akel Dama. So there's by the way, Igai Yadin, who was one of Israel's most famous archaeologists, and he was the one that translated the temple scroll initially. And in his book, he has a 3-volume work, and he has a 1-volume work. And I believe that where he tells about this, about the Akel Dama, about Yehuda HaSakari, about the 30 shekels or the 30 pieces of silver, is in his 1-volume book on the temple scroll. So I want to give you the source on that. All right. And they were glad and agreed to give him money. So I need to share the slides again. Sorry. All right. So he went his way and conferred with the chief priests and captains how he might betray him to them. They were glad and agreed to give him money. So he promised and sought opportunity to betray him to them in the absence of the multitude. Then came the day of unleavened bread. Again, it's going to be what we saw before. This is the verse we looked at. Then came the Be'er Chametz, when the Passover must be killed. So that in the morning, up to noon, and then about 2:30 in the afternoon, they start killing the Passover lambs. So the day that we have here is going to be the 13th of Nisan. And he sent Peter. Now, not the Be'er Chametz, okay, that's going to be the next day, but he sent Peter and Shimon and Yochanan, saying, go and prepare the Pesach, meaning the Pesach meal for us, that we may eat. Okay, so literally in the Greek, it says, go and prepare the Pesach. Okay, so the writer of the book of Luke certainly intended to convey that they were going to be having a Pesach lamb. So they said to him, where do you want us to prepare? And he said to them, behold, when you have entered the city, a man will meet you carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house which he enters. Then you shall say to the master of the house, the teacher says to you, where's the guest room where I may eat the Pesach, meaning the Pesach meal, with my talmidim? Then he'll show you a large furnished upper room. There, make ready. So continuing on in Luke, we're going to go into the evening of the 14th of Nisan. So they went and found it just as he had said to them, that's on the 13th, and they prepared the Pesach, meaning the Pesach lamb, when the hour had come. Okay, so we just had a change. The daylight ended, the dark came, and we are now on the 14th of Nisan. When the hour had come, he sat down, and the 12 talmidim, and actually it says apostles, which would be the word shlachim, but I believe that that is a mistranslation because they do not become the shlachim until after he has risen from the dead. There's talmidim with him. Then he said to them, with fervent desire, I have desired to eat this Pesach, meaning the Pesach lamb. And you can look it up in the Greek, and that is literally what it says, with you before I suffer. For I say to you, I will no longer eat of it until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of God. Then he took the cup and gave thanks and said, Take this and divide it among yourselves, for I say to you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes. And he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Likewise, he also took the cup after supper. So this first cup that we read would be the first cup. Okay? And the first cup would be the very first thing. That's the Kadesh. This is where you are starting the Seder. And then you would have a second cup. Today we have a third and fourth. Now, according to Rabbi Abraham Bloch, who has two books, one is called The Biblical and Historical Background of Jewish Holy Days. Second book, The Biblical and Historical Background of Jewish Customs and Ceremonies. Both of them have chapters on Pesach. And what he relates is that in the first century, they only had two cups. It was not until after the Bar Kokhba revolt that the other two cups were added. Okay? Now, there's very interesting one we have here. And he also took the cup after supper, saying, this is the cup. This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is said for you. And that would make it the cup of Eliyahu. It was also called, it had several names. It was called the cup that is poured out for you. The cup that is poured out for you, and it is called the cup that the cup of the covenant, which comes from the book of Malachi, chapter 3, and I'll read that to you. Let me stop sharing for a moment. In Malachi chapter 3, it says, behold, this is verse 1. I send my messenger, and he will prepare the way before me. Okay, and the Lord whom you seek will suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, in whom you delight. Behold, he is coming, says the Lord of hosts. If we go to the last few verses of Malachi, there are only 3 chapters of Malachi in the Tanakh, but the same number of verses. So in a non-Jewish Bible, it is divided into 4, but it ends with, remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, whom I commanded him in Horeb for all of Israel with his statutes and judgments. Behold, I'll send you Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he'll turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse. Now, Eliyahu is expected to bring that covenant. And we set at the Seder table, we set a chair and a plate and a cup for Eliyahu. During the Seder, just as we end the meal, well, we send the children to look at the door to see if Eliyahu has arrived. And when the children come back in, we say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, blessed be he that cometh in the name of the Lord. You might remember that Yeshua made this statement in reference to I'll not drink wine until you say Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. Okay, that will deal with the next coming, the second coming. Okay, immediately following that, we have 3 verses. And these 3 verses are God bringing judgment on the nations, God bringing judgment on the earth. And there has been a transition. Now, as I mentioned, much of the second part of the Seder was added after the Bar Kokhba revolt. Now, people can say, oh, well, that's a rabbinical addition. I don't believe it is. I believe they were directed by Hashem to add that in because after the first coming, we look forward to the second coming. The people were in diaspora. The people were scattered. Not only were they in diaspora, but they were afflicted. We say in very first part of the Seder, halakma anya. This is the bread of affliction, which our forefathers ate. Affliction, bread of affliction is the lachem oni. Okay, but it was the bread of prisoners. Many of the Jews that were carried into left the land of Israel with the end of the first temple period, second temple period. They went as slaves. They were afflicted. They were scattered all through the Roman Empire. At one point, you could buy slaves cheaper than you could buy bread. And so they needed to have a hope of coming back to the land. And so the Seder was changed, okay? But here you have a picture of the immediately after the doors opened, they're looking for Eliyahu. We sing Eliyahu Hanavi, and we have this thing of we're going into this framework of the next coming. Okay, I want to go back and to Malachi 3. And again, it says, behold, I'll send my messenger and he'll prepare the way before me. So I want to go to Isaiah 40. And Isaiah 40 is tied to this passage where it says, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. And then it goes forward. I want to go to Isaiah 62. In Isaiah 62, we're going to go to verse 10. And here it says, go through the gates, prepare the way for the people, build up the highway, take out the stones, lift up a banner for the peoples. I want to go to the book of Micah. in Micah, we go to chapter 2. Okay. In Micah chapter 2, we're going to verse 12. I will surely assemble all of you, O Yaakov. I will surely gather the remnant. I'll put them together like sheep in the fold, like a flock in the midst of their pasture. They shall make a loud noise because of so many. Now, verse 13 is the key one. The one who breaks open will come up before them, the breaker. They will break out and pass through the gate and go out by it. The king will pass before them with the Lord at their head. All of these are tied to Eliyahu. Okay, so when he takes that cup and he mentions that this is the cup of the new covenant, they know something major is going on. The cup is also referred to as the cup that is poured out. The reason that it's called that is because at the end of the Seder, when Eliyahu hasn't come, then no one drinks the cup. They rather pour it out. I believe differently. I believe that at this point right here, he takes the cup and he basically is making the statement of this covenant begins here. All right, we're going to go back to the slides. And I believe that it was the intention, the purposeful intention that he's not just having, oh, I want to have one last fling with my Talmudim, with my students. I want to be able to enjoy a Seder before I have to go through all this pain and suffering and death. I think that the Seder itself is being used in order to convey the redemption. If you'll remember, the Seder is about the first redemption, but the first redemption is tied into and a picture of the future redemption, the messianic redemption, which will be the greater redemption. Now, we want to go back to Shemot chapter 12. And so the heading on that we have here is between the evenings, which is Bein HaArabim. Now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month, meaning the lamb. This is back in Egypt. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it. And it says at twilight, but it's in Hebrew, Bein HaArabim. And you see it down here in the below it. Okay. Now, all right, let's go forward. So we're going to Vayikra 23. And this is a major understanding. Not all moedim, a moed means an appointed time, or hagim, okay? Hagim means festivals, okay? In particular, hagim means the shlosh regalim, the three festivals of Hakamatza, Shavuot, and Sukkot. So let's read this, verses 1 and 2. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, the moedim, it does not say the feast of the Lord. There have been numbers of books, I'm going to stop sharing, that have been taken from Leviticus 23, and books that we call the 7 festivals of the Lord. I can't remember his name. He's passed away. Zola Levitt. And he had a book by that name. And so he goes through and he says, your first festival is the slaying of the Passover lambs. Then you have Hakamatza, and then you have the first fruits of the barley. Then you have Shavuot. Then you have Rosh Hashanah. Then you have Yom Kippur. Then you have Sukkot. And all of these are listed in Leviticus 23. Now, all of those are appointed times. But we have many appointed times that are not festivals. For instance, in Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 28, Let me read this to you. In Numbers 28, we start off in verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Command the children of Israel and say to them, My offering, the provision of my offerings made by fire for a sweet savor to me, shall you observe to offer to me in their due season. And thou shalt say to them, This is the fire offering which ye shall offer to the Lord, 2 lambs of the first year without blemish day by day, a continual burnt offering. This is the Hebrew word tamid, which means a never ending or continual. The one lamb shall thou offer in the morning, and the other lamb shall thou offer at evening. But actually, what it says in Hebrew is bain ha'arvim. Okay, same thing is for the Pesach lamb. It's an appointed time, but it's not a hak. It's done every day. It does not have to, it is not dependent upon the calendar, like the Shabbat is not dependent on the calendar. The Shabbat is an appointed time, but it is not dependent upon the calendar. We don't have to have the calendar set to know when Shabbat will be. It is every seventh day. The Tamid is every day. Okay, and so, but then we get the one shall thou offer in the morning, the other lamb shall thou offer at evening, or bain ha'erbim, and a tenth part of an ephah of flour for a meal offering, mingled with the fourth part of a hin of beaten oil, is a continual burnt offering, which was ordained in Mount Sinai for a sweet savor. An offering made by fire to the Lord, its drink offering shall be the fourth part of a hin. For the one lamb, to the holy place shalt thou cause the strong drink to be poured to the Lord for a drink offering. And the other lamb shalt thou offer at evening, or between the evenings, like the meal offering of the morning, and like its drink offering, thou shalt offer it an offering made by fire of a sweet savor to the Lord. In the Sabbath day, number 2, appointed time. And then I can drop down Rosh Chodesh, an appointed time. But the Shabbat is not a festival. Rosh Chodesh is considered a minor festival, but we don't call it a Hag. Okay, so we have many many moedim that are not Hagim, they're not festivals. Okay, so let's go back to our slides, and we'll go through this slide and maybe one more before we go to break. All right. And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, The moedim of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. These are my moedim. And so you'll see where they're highlighted in black, these are the 2 places that you have moeday, okay, which means my festivals, my appointed times, excuse me. All right, let's see if we can get them. All right. So the 14th of Nisan, the day they killed the Pesach lambs, is an appointed time, but it's not a Hag. It's not a festival, and the festival will not start until dark after the day of the 14th. These are the Hagim of the Lord, holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at their appointed times. And again, it's going to be the moedim on the 14th day of the first month at twilight, or bain ha'arbim, is the Lord's Pesach. And on the 15th day of the same month is Hag Hamatzah, the festival of unleavened bread to the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall have a holy convocation. It has a kedusha. It is a 7-day festival. The first day is going to be a Shabbaton, or a Mikre Kodesh, a high Sabbath. On the first day, you shall have a holy convocation, and you shall do no customary work on it. You are allowed to do work that is for the festival. You are allowed to cook, even though it is a high Sabbath. You are allowed to cook for the festival. All right, maybe we can get one more. No, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a break because we're going to switch. We're going to go to Josephus. Now, what we're going to start doing, let me stop sharing totally here. And what we're going to do when we come back is we're going to start developing the proof that Yeshua had the Seder. Here's what I want to do. I want to show that it is the only way that it'll work. Okay? Not only for Yeshua, but for Israel. Number two is that I want to show you Halakhic. Okay? And this Halakhic will be from the Tosafta, but you can also find it in the Mishnah. Okay? And so if you're unfamiliar with what the Mishnah is, it is not a matter of traditions, it is a matter of legal rulings that were put forth by the Sanhedrin. And if we go back to the Torah, God gave authority to the Sanhedrin, not only authority, but he actually charged them with this responsibility, that they were to set how the various commandments were to be done. Now, in the setting of this, it is not, well, I think it'd be a good idea if we did this. And no, that's not the way it works. The way it works is that in order to make a ruling, they have to have where they go through the entire Torah and they find everything that will link to a commandment. You think, oh, what do you mean? Everything? It is a path through. So I'll try to explain that a little bit more as we come back from our break. And so we'll take 10 or so minutes and
לא שומעים!
Shalom, everyone. Give me a second to get everything back up. Okay. All right. Now, the second part, this is where, to me, it really gets interesting. Just as a matter of review. One is the 14th is not a moed. It is a moed, but not a moed. All right. It's not a festival. We have that the 14th of Nisan was the day they killed the lamb. Okay. Now, if Yeshua died at the same time they killed the lamb, then that knocks him out of having a Seder on the 15th. Okay. So this is the big question. How could he do it on the 14th when the 15th is the time for the Seder? That's number one. Number two is, can he legally do that? Can that be a Pesach if it was not slain on the 14th? Okay. So we're going to go to Josephus first. Then we're going to go to primarily the Tosafta. We'll have a little bit from the Tractate Pesachim, but I think that you'll find it very interesting in the way that this develops out. All right. So we'll go to Jewish War, Book 6, and we're going to read about 8 or 9 paragraphs. I usually start this on the next slide, but this was there was some really good information here. The total number of prisoners taken throughout statistics, the entire war amounted to 97,000. Dead, and I'm missing a couple words there. And those who perished in the siege from first to last. Let me pull that up. I've got the book here. You can see it on the screen, and we'll get it accurate. All right, 422 or 420. All right, the total number of prisoners taken throughout the entire war amounted to 97,000, and those who perished in the siege from first to last to 1,100,000. Of these, and this is the important part, the greater number were of Jewish blood, but not natives of the place. In other words, they came from all over the ancient world at that time. For having assembled from every part of the country for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, they found themselves suddenly enveloped in the war, with the result that this overcrowding produced first pestilence and later the added and more rapid scourge of famine. That the city should contain so many is clear from the count taken under Cestius. Okay, now I want to mention something. What we're talking about is 70 Common Era. And the numbers at that particular Passover are possibly higher than they would have normally been, because the Romans, when they came, the war started in 66. They overthrew the war started in Caesarea Maritima on the coast, which was the Roman headquarters, and then it went from there to Jerusalem. The conduct of the Pretoria, the Roman governor, was absolutely horrendous, and he basically pushed them into starting the revolt. They overthrew the garrison in Antonia. He made a dash for Caesarea, and he escaped, but they slaughtered almost his whole troop. Okay, they're very successful at the beginning, but the Romans, they sent their most able general, Vespasian, with several legions, and they attacked the north. Okay, so there were big battles up in the north. By the time that we get to 70 Common Era, the north has fallen. So the Battle of Gamla, the Battle of Yodfat, the Battle of the Sea of Galilee. And so many people are fleeing to the south. Where are they going to go? They go to Jerusalem. They came for the festival. There were three different armies, zealot armies. We had the zealots, and then we had another group of zealots, and then we had an Idumean army who were converted Jews, and the three are having civil war among them. Okay, so not only were the Romans who arrive on the scene, all these people are trapped inside. But on a normal year, and like 30 common era, the numbers would certainly be very, very high. Maybe a few 100,000 less than what was there in 70 common era. So this gives us a pretty good insight into, how many they would expect for a Seder, or for the slaying of the Passover lambs and the eating of the Pesach. So one thing to remember, that if you did not come to Jerusalem, you could not have a lamb. Only in Jerusalem. You had to eat that lamb within the walls of the city. You could have a Seder outside Jerusalem, but only in Jerusalem, the Passover lamb. Now, if you've been to Israel, you know that the Kotel has people there. The Western Wall, what used to be called the Wailing Wall, has people there all the time. On Shabbat, it's flooded with people. On a holy day, it's flooded with people. I mean, there are thousands that are there. I went to before Rosh Hashanah about 2 years ago. I went, maybe it was 3, where they had the Halakhic prayers at midnight, and there were tens of thousands of people. And we were about maybe 10 days before Rosh Hashanah. Every day it got more, it got more, it got more. So when you're having the Hagim, the city is flooded all the time, okay? All the Kohanim are coming. So you have thousands and thousands of people. But look at the slide at the numbers. The numbers are staggering. Let's see. All right, the total number of prisoners, we've already done this one. Let's go to the next slide. For he, being anxious to convince Nero, who held the nation in contempt. Nero was the emperor at that time. Census or of the cities. Let's see what's happening. Okay. For he, being anxious to convince Nero, who held the nation in contempt of the city's strength, instructed the chief priest, if by any means possible, to take a census of the population. Accordingly, on the occasion of the feast called Passover, at which they sacrifice from the 9th to the 11th hour, and a little fraternity, as it were, gathers round each sacrifice. Now, he's calling it a fraternity. The Hebrew name of it would be Havara. Okay, and so it will also be called a company in some text. Okay, as it were, gathers around each sacrifice of not fewer than 10 persons. That's based on Exodus chapter 12. Feasting alone not being permitted, while the companies often include as many as 20. So for the lamb, you can have 10. You must have a minimum of 10. You cannot have more than 20. If there are more than 20, then one has to register with another Havara and join theirs, but only if there are not more than 20 at that one. Okay, as many as 20, the victims were counted and amounted to 255,600, allowing an average of 10 dinars to each victim. We obtain a total of 2,700,000 all pure and holy, for those afflicted with leprosy or gonorrhea or menstruous women or persons otherwise defiled were not permitted to partake of this sacrifice, nor yet any foreigners present for worship. Now let's stop here. Okay, so we have 4 impurities that an individual can have that they're not allowed to eat the Pesach lamb. This does not include corpse impurity. If you have corpse impurity, you can eat the Pesach lamb. So the 4 impurities are going to be listed in the Tractate Kelim, chapter 1, Mishnah 8. This is of the Mishnah. And so a zav, that is a man that has a genital discharge. Okay, so zavot, these are women that have an issue of blood outside of their menstrual flow. Nidot, women within their menstrual cycle. And yodot, women that have a discharge due to childbirth. Okay, so all of those are not allowed to eat. Okay, so you have what are called subscribers and people that have not subscribed because they're ineligible. Plus, you have, and we're going to see this, it says circumcised and uncircumcised. Okay, and that's exactly what Josephus said. For not counting, nor yet any foreigners present for worship. Okay, and now when it says present for worship, people will say, "Oh, that doesn't mean the Seder." When we look at the Mishnah and the Tosafta, it specifically means the Seder. Okay, so you could have 60 people, but you can only have 10 to 20 that can eat the lamb. If you have more than 10 and you are more than 15, you will have a second animal that's called the Hagigah. Okay, and so these numbers are astounding. 2,700,000 of those that can eat the lamb, plus all the others that are there. We have one more slide from Josephus. For those afflicted with leprosy, okay, sarat, forgot that one. Sarat is biblical leprosy. They're called a metzora, or gonorrhea, that's a zav, or menstruous women or persons otherwise defiled were not permitted to partake of this sacrifice, nor yet any foreigners present for worship, okay? But they're there for the Seder. And a large number of these assemble from abroad. But now the whole nation had been shut up by fate, as in a prison, and the city, when war encompassed it, was packed with inhabitants. The victims thus outnumbered those of any previous visitation, human or divine. So Josephus is saying, hey, this is probably the highest number that were ever there. That's what I was telling you before. But when we take all this away, it's probably only going to be a couple 100,000 less. When you're talking about 2,600,000, that leaves a lot of people. The victims there thus outnumbered those of any previous visitation, human or divine. For when all who showed themselves had been either slain or made prisoners by the Romans, the victors instituted a search for those in the mines, that means in the tunnels, and tearing up the ground, slew all whom they met. Here too were found upwards of 2,000 dead, of whom some had been destroyed by their own, some by another's hands, but the greater number by famine. Now we have a law. You may not eat the Pesach, the lamb, past midnight of the 15th of Nisan. You'll remember back in Shemot, back in Exodus, that the angel of death came at midnight. And so that is the cutoff time. You can easily validate that. There's any number of ways. You can Google it and Chabad will answer you. Okay? All right. So we have several factors that we have to figure in here. Number one, you must register with a court if you are eating the lamb. Now, I was asked by Edgar Ramos the night, was that a regular court or a priestly court? And I've been thinking about it. It very possibly was a priestly court. You might remember that in the Sanhedrin, there were 71 members. And we had 23 that were priests, 23 that were Levites, and 23 that were neither priests nor Levites, but Israelites, making a total of 69. And you have the Av Beit Din, he's the vice president of the Sanhedrin, and then you have the Nasi, making 71. He's the president. I don't think that the Sanhedrin were the ones that you went to. I think that you went to a smaller court and possibly right on the Temple Mount. Possibly there were clerks that were set up that were priests or Levites in order to keep track of all the numbers that were coming. Now, I'm going to say something in a few minutes. We're going to come back to that. We'll visit that again. But I have an opinion I want to put forth on how they did this. Okay. So we're going to read Shemot chapter 12, verses 3 and 4. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th day of this month, every man shall take for himself a lamb, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of persons. Okay, this is where you have to register. And then just like we have an appointed time, we have an appointed number. According to each man's need, you shall make your count for the lamb. All right. The Pesach, this is from Pesachim 5:5 of the mission. The Pesach was slaughtered in 3 groups, as it is written, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall slaughter it. That's from Shemot 12:6. Assembly, congregation, and Israel. So if you notice, and the whole assembly, that's going to be one group. They're going to have 3 groups. Okay, so one group is the assembly group of the congregation. That's your second group of Israel. That's your third group. That's where they get the 3 separate groups. The first group entered. Whoa, where did they enter? Okay, it says they closed the doors of the temple courtyard. I can even tell you what were the names of the doors that they closed. Let's see, I didn't share this. Let me put that up there. All right. So let me grab my model. All right. So the Pesach was slaughtered in 3 groups, as is written. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall slaughter it. Exodus 12:6, assembly, congregation in Israel. The first group entered the temple courtyard. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to grab a pointer. What we're talking about is this courtyard. Okay, starting here. This is the eastern wall of the Azarah. This is the western wall of the Azarah. Now, this area I've got a little pin to take these things out. Here we go. Okay. Right. You'll notice I took the roofs off of these buildings. These are slaughter areas. And we have a ruling that we find in the Mishnah, Maser Sheni, means second time, 3:8, that if, watch this, if you see how I went through, there's a gate that goes right through, and right here, there's a gate that goes right. Get it? Go this way. The gate's not big enough to be able to push it all the way through. But then we have gates over here. See them? We have gates over here. So if this enters into the Azara, then this area you're allowed to slaughter in, okay? Now we're told that they can use the entire Azara, which would mean this, all of this area here, plus these slaughter areas. Now, that's a big area, no doubt about it. It's a big area because this is 187 cubits from the back wall, from the west wall, all the way to, the eastern wall of the Azara to the western wall. And each cubit is 23.04 inches. So you can do the math. It's big. But wait a second. We're going to put 600,000 people in there. We got 600,000 lambs. Not everybody goes up to the temple. They send one individual if they're going to have one lamb. They send two individuals if they're going to have a lamb and a goat or a lamb and a lamb. And so if they need the Hagigah, the second animal, they'll send two people. But nevertheless, if we have 600,000, that's a very small area. I had, for the Seder here, we did a family Seder the first night. We had some house guests, but we had a public Seder on Sunday night. And we were somewhere probably between 75, close to 80 people. I don't think we reached 80, but we were right ballpark. And I asked the people, we have a big tent that we set up, and we were wall to wall people. Okay. Every year we put the food down at one end on tables, and everybody goes down by the tables and gets their food. We weren't able to do it this year. We had to put the food out on tables on our patio. And so I asked the people, what if we had 8,000 people that showed up for the Seder? In my house, we have a rule. We don't turn anybody away from the Seder, okay? Same thing for Shabbat. Everybody's welcome. And in fact, we do this welcome, Halakhic. All that are hungry, come and eat. But what if 8,000 showed up and the tent only holds so many people? So the Azara can only hold so many people. And to complicate it, this altar right here is actually, I don't know if I can get it where you can see, it's 19.2 feet high. 19.2 feet high. Let me try it this way. All right. You see the altar? That's 19.2 feet high. Okay. It's a big altar. It's 42 feet on each side. But we have to have rows of priests that are going to be lined up. You have an individual that will slay his lamb. And they're going to, once the lamb is slain, they catch the blood. They're going to pass the blood down a fire bucket brigade all the way to the altar. And so you got a problem. You can only have so many stations where you're killing those lambs because you got the temple building in there. Okay, and the temple building is gigantic, it's huge. So you're limited on your space, plus each row has to throw the blood against the altar. So you can only have so many stations around the altar. All right, let's go back to our slide. All right. The first group entered the Azara. Entered. The Azara was filled. They closed the doors. That'd be the Nicanor gates of the temple courtyard. They sent a Tikiah, Terura, and again a Tikiah with the silver trumpets. The priests stood row up over row, holding in their hands silver bowls and golden bowls. The whole of the one row had silver. The entire other row had gold. They were not mixed. So you had a row of gold, row of silver, and so forth. The bowls did not have flat bottoms, lest they set them down and the blood congealed. Pesach 5:5 from the Mishnah. Is it possible outside of a miracle, the timing? And an Israelite slaughtered and the priest received, handed it to his fellow and his fellow to his fellow, and he would accept the full one and return the empty one. The priest nearest to the altar would throw one toss against the base. And then he walks back to the beginning of the line where they're slaughtering the lambs. And they're going to each move one step at a time, closer and closer. That's Pesach 5:6. The first group left, and the second group entered. The second left, the third entered. As the procedure of the first, so too was the procedure of the second and of the third. They recited Hallel. Okay, the Hallel is Psalms 113 through 118. They're going to sing them. If they finished it, they repeated it, and the repetition was completed. They recited a third time, although they never did recite it a third time. So they're saying, if the mission is correct, that they finished slaughtering the lambs before they could sing through Psalms 113 through 118 twice. They might start on the third time, but never finish that. Whoa, that's not very long. That is maybe 15 minutes. Rabbi Yehuda says, now notice Rabbi Yehuda, he's going to come up later. He actually was alive at the time the temple stood there, okay? And he's a very famous rabbi. He was one of the two most important rabbis in the court of Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, the president of the Sanhedrin. The Rabbi Yehuda says the third group never reached I love, for the Lord hears, because its people were few. Well, if we have 2 million or 600,000, that's quite an achievement. Okay. So, Pesach 5:10, he tore it open and took out its emerim. Okay. Put them on a tray and burned them on the altar. So that's going to take a few minutes here. The first group left and sat on the Temple Mount. The second on the Kel, that's the platform that goes around the inner courtyards. And the third stood in its place. They stayed in the Azra. After night fell, they're gonna dismiss them only when dark comes. They left and roasted the Korban Pesach. Now, here, I thought I had a slide that tells you that they started the slaying of the lambs at 2:30 in the afternoon. And what Josephus says is from 2 to 5. And I think they could go all the way to dark. Okay, they have to be finished by dark. After night fell, they left and roasted the Korban Pesach. Now, it is roasted. Do you see this here? That's roasted. Okay, that is what is done for they do this on the 14th, and that night on the 15th, they eat. That's why we have the meal in the middle of the Seder, is because it takes a while for the Pesach lamb to roast. So how are these animals brought into the temple? Fascinating article was written by the archaeologist Baruch Yuval and Ronnie Reich. And so how were the animals brought into the temple? There is, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see my cursor, but behind the wall here in this section, there is a gigantic, very huge, it goes quite a ways back, called Solomon's Stables. I showed pictures of it in the last week, or the last 2 weeks. And they believe that they have established that on the eastern side, at the southern wall, there was a ramp that came up, and they took the animals, and you'll see there's 3 doors at the top, and then a set of 2 doors. The 2 doors farther down, that's where the population entered. You have a big stairway in front of that. You have a small stairway in front of these 3 doors. The most eastern, or the one furthest to the right, they believe was for the animals. And they brought the animals in through this. Now, I have a friend, quite a Torah scholar, tremendous library, but he was a professional cowboy. I mean, not the kind that you see in the rodeos, but the kind that you see out on the range for most of his life. He's a saddlesmith, he's a silversmith. I mean, he's all of these things, the real thing. And he works with us at our temple research, and he's our animal expert. One of the things he says, if you need 600,000 lambs, you're not going to do that in an afternoon. That's going to take a while to get all those lambs. You got to get them up to this one specific area that's way inside the temple compound. The outer courtyard is very big. And so how long would it take to bring in 600,000 lambs? You start thinking about it. That's quite a feat. How about the people? Where were they required to eat the lamb? Within the walls of Jerusalem. That's what it says. Now, we have discovered it's actually in the book of Ezekiel. We can find it in the Tanakh. In an obscure reference, but we found it from the scroll called the Temple Scroll. It talks about what's called Ir Hamikdash. Now, Ir Hamikdash, that means the city of the temple. I'm going to show you an illustration of it in a moment. Each location where a lamb was eaten, there must be 10 to 20 people present eating the lamb. You could have more than that, but they were not allowed to eat the lamb. How many rooms would it take to sit at the same time 2 million people? I mean, we have 2 million that, according to Josephus, that's the numbers of the ones going to be eating the Passover lambs. They have to eat it within the walls of the city, and you can't eat it, out in the open. There was really would not have been any place in the open that you could have done it. But here I'm going to show you Ir Hamikdash. Now you see in the slide on the left, you notice that there's a wall here, but look at the one to the right. This was an earlier picture. This is a later picture. And do you see the porticos here? Porticos that are lined. Now look at here. You can see them. And they're described in the book of Ezekiel. And so this is from Igayadin's book. So you have a chamber, and it's going to be 10 cubits wide, and it's 20 cubits long. And then you have another chamber in front of it. It's 10 cubits wide and 20 cubits long. And there are 3 floors. And so next to this would be another series of chambers, and that's called Ir Hamikdash. And that explains a lot. That gives a lot of places, but you're not going to come close to 2 million. I don't think you could even do 1 million with what you have here and what you have in Jerusalem. Okay? And there were, according to the book of Ezekiel, there were ovens in the corners of the outer temple. Now, Passover on the 15th requires a special type of oven that they had to build brand new every year, unless it have any leaven in it. And they're called Passover ovens, and they're designed to roast the lamb. Okay? So I went to AI today, and I asked AI, in 30 Common Era, how big was Jerusalem's walled area? Okay? So before we read this, I want you to look at the picture to the right. This is in 70 Common Era, and you'll see a wall that is about halfway up on the left-hand side of the picture, and it's not as dark as the other walls, okay? So you'll see the Tyropian, you'll see the upper city, you'll see the city of David. This is the lower city down here. This was the wall at the time of 30 Common Era, the time of Yeshua, not this whole thing. And it was 0.35 square miles, and in kilometers is 0.9 square kilometers, encompassing the old city. Okay, so what we have, if you go to Jerusalem, and the walls around the old city are going to match the amount of space they had in the in 30 Common Era. To walk around them, the walls themselves were 2.5 miles to walk around the entire city. And in kilometers, it's 4 kilometers in length. Thought that was pretty amazing. How are you going to get 2 million people in there? How are you going to get, first off, 600,000 in the Azarah and do it in the time frame that you have? You're slaughtering like 50 or 60 lambs every second in order to do that. And how are you going to get all of these people to have to go? And even if we use Ir Hamidash, how are you going to have enough space for all these people to eat the Seder on the night of the 15th? Oh, here's how. This is from the Tosefta, Pesachim 4:7. Now, the other passages from the Tosefta I'm going to take from the Newsner. This I got off Sefaria, okay? And it reads just the same, but the Newsner's a little bit more confusing. One who slaughters the Pesach offering to eat it on the 14th of Nisan, it is valid to eat. Wait a second. The 14th, it says back in Shemot, you have to eat it on the 15th. What if the 15th is the last night you can eat it? You're never going to get 2 million people in there at one time. But if you had a couple nights, it's much more doable. So if he prepared it half cooked, actually what the Newser says is raw. I like half cooked better. Boiled or cooked is valid. He's not allowed to roast it. It's going to separate only on the 15th is it roasted. One who slaughters the Passover offering on behalf of the members of a company, that's the Hamarah, and he said he did not slaughter it in its name. In other words, he slaughtered it with a different purpose in mind. He is not believed. Rabbi Yehuda, oh, there he is again. Remember your Rabbi Yehuda says, if he said it before he began the slaughter, in other words, it's for a different purpose, he's believed. But if he said it after he began the slaughter, he's not believed. Okay, here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. We have in the Mishnah that it says you're allowed to eat on the 14th of Nisan. And we've been reading, you have to slaughter the Passover lamb on the 14th of Nisan and eat it on the night of the 15th. But what if, and I'm going to show you there was a debate about this, what if that because of the logistics, because you have this enormous problem of getting all these lambs in there at a specific time, you had this problem, all these people in there, and then the rows go into the altar, and you have to get everybody into some place that's large enough to have 10 to 20 people and maybe 50 all at one time. And you're just not going to be able to do it. What if the 14th of Nisan, right before the Hakamatza starts, is the cutoff date, the last date that you can do it, but you could have slaughtered it on the 13th, and they're going to mention the 13th in the Tosefta coming up. You slaughtered it on the 13th, it was valid. I told you I was going to give you an opinion that in order to do this, one of the things we have to work on in our temple research is the flow of the people. How do you keep the people moving? How do you keep it where it's organized? We had quite with just feeding 80 people and getting them to go through a line, you have to have a system. It doesn't work if you don't. And so when they went to register for the court for Havara, my opinion, what I think is, all right, your group will come on the 13th at such and such a time, or your group will come on the 14th, and that we know that that they did it by whoever was first. Okay, so your first group, second group, third group. So whoever arrived first was in the first group, then second group, third group. But I suspect that they were given a specific time that they were to arrive with their lambs, and that's the way it was done. All right. Now that's an opinion. That does not mean that that's the way it was. All right, let's go back. All right. So there's about 6 or 7 more slides, so we'll go till we get them. Yeshua's lamb was slain on the afternoon of the 13th Nisan, following the afternoon Tamid. The Pesach is the only one that you're allowed to do after the Tamid. When dark came, the 14th of Nisan began. It is at this time Yeshua and the Talmudim, his students, sat down to eat the Seder meal. The lamb was not roasted because they're on the night of the 14th. After midnight, but that allows it to be kosher. After midnight, he left to go to the Garden of Gethsemane. Before dawn, he was arrested and the illegal trial began. Okay, or trials. There's actually several. But I want to show you something coming up. This is out of the book of Yochanan, chapter 18, verse 28. And this is the morning of the 14th. This is when Yeshua is being tried. Then they led Yeshua from Caiaphas to the Praetorium. That's where Herod's palace was. The Praetoria is the governor or the sub-governor. The Roman, that's what Pontius Pilate was. And at the Praetorium, he occupied Herod's palace. It was the nicest place in Jerusalem. It was early morning, but they themselves, this is the ones that are accusing him, did not go into the Praetorium lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Pesach. Okay, so we can see the Pesach, they're going to eat that night. But Yeshua had his Seder the evening before. All right. Now, this is the debate. And I don't have time to be able to explain this fully, but I want to point out a few things. It said to him, Rabbi Yehoshua. Okay, so we have Rabbi Yehuda, we've already mentioned, Rabbi Yehoshua. Before I said Rabbi Yehuda was the left, one of the two main guys is Rabbi Yehoshua, or the two main guys of Yochanan ben Zakkai, the rabbi, the president of the Sanhedrin. You have thereby diminished the power of the Pesach offering or sacrifice, and you strengthen the power of peace offerings. Rabbi Eliezer went and took another tack. Okay, they've already been debating this. I only put about 4 or 5 of the Tosefta in here so that you can see the debate, that this was a highly debated item. This debate takes place somewhere between 70 Common Era and 120 Common Era. This is when they have moved the Sanhedrin to Yavne. All of these rabbis are going to be very important. Rabbi Eliezer, that's Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, went and took another tack. We find that he who consecrates coins for the purpose of a Passover sacrifice, he brings with the excess funds left over after the purchase of the Passover lamb peace offerings. But he who consecrates coins for the purpose of peace offering does not bring with the excess funds left over after the purchase of peace offerings a Passover sacrifice. So, in other words, if you have money for a Passover offering, it has to be used for the Passover offering. If you have extra money left over, then you can apply that to peace offerings, not the other way around. All right. So now, if a Passover, in the instance which he who consecrates funds for it brings peace offerings with the excess, is not valid when it is offered for peace offerings in the instance of which he who consecrates funds for them does not bring a Passover sacrifice with the excess. Is it logical that they should not be valid when brought under the designation of a Passover offering? Okay, I know you don't understand, just hang on. I'll try to make it a little bit clearer. Said to him, Rabbi Yehoshua. So Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehoshua, their arguments were legendary. And the guys argued all the time. Rabbi Yehoshua was from Beit Hillel. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus was from Beit Shammai. But they loved each other. Said to him, Rabbi Yehoshua, a sin offering will prove the case, for he who consecrates coins for it does not bring peace offerings with the excess, but it is valid when offered under the designation of peace offerings. Okay, in other words, that you can bring a peace offering. Well, let's read the rest, then we'll explain. So you too, do not be surprised at peace offerings. That's the Korban Shelamim. Even though he who consecrates coins for the purchase of peace offering does not bring a Passover sacrifice with the excess funds, they should be valid when offered under the designation of a Passover sacrifice. Okay, hold on. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, no, that is by no means a valid argument. For if you have stated the rule in the case of a sin offering, which is valid when it is offered under its proper designation as a sin offering, on all other days of the year, will you say the same rule of a Passover, which is not valid when it is offered under the correct designation, in other words, as a Passover sacrifice on all the other days of the year? Since it is not valid, it is offered under the proper designation of the Passover offering on all of the days of the year. If they slaughter it for the purpose of other sacrifices on the 14th of Nisan, this surely should be invalid. That's what they're going to debate. Okay, so I know you're confused, but basically the question here is not whether they can do this on the 13th of Nisan. The question is, do they have to declare that it's Passover offering, or can they bring it under a peace offering? Passover offering is a peace offering, slaughter it, and that's the Passover lamb. That's what the debate's about. Okay? So you'll see it develop as we go along. The animal designated as a Passover offering, which one slaughtered at dawn on the 14th of Nisan, not under the proper designation as a Passover offering, because you're not allowed to do it in the morning. Rabbi Yehuda declares it valid. Whoa, look at what comes after. As if it were slaughtered on the 13th of Nisan. That means that a Passover offering slaughtered on the 13th of Nisan is valid. Then Batera declares it invalid, as if it were slaughtered at Dain HaAravim. Said Rabbi Yehoshua, since the 13th is a time which is not suitable, and the dawn of the 14th of Nisan is not a time suitable, just as if he slaughtered it on the 13th, not under the proper or the original designation, it is valid. So if he slaughtered it on the 14th, not under the proper designation as a Passover offering, it should be valid. We have several things established here. I only have one more slide. It's a big one. Okay. First off is we have established. Number one, you can eat a Passover lamb on the 14th. We read it in the Mishnah. It's not an opinion. It's a Halakhic. Number two, it can be slaughtered on the 13th. There was a debate about whether it had to be declared as a Passover lamb or it could come in as a peace offering. That's what the debate is about. But the bottom line is if they're debating this, it establishes that it was a practice, that it was done. That makes sense because that makes the system work. If you have it only on the 14th, only between 2:30 and dark, you wouldn't get it done outside of a miracle that would be of the proportion of the sea parting. You wouldn't be able to feed all those people in one evening inside the walls of the city, even including the Ir Hamikdash. Okay? All right, we're going to go to the last one. Now, this at first won't make sense to you, but I think it will when I explain one point. Rabbi. Okay, so I typed in Yehuda Hanasi. Okay, it just says rabbi answered. Anytime you see the term rabbi, it always means Yehuda Hanasi. He's the one that closed the Mishnah. He was the Nasi that closed the Mishnah and the Tosafta. So our debate is taking place between 70 and 120 Common Era before the Bar Kokhba revolt by men that were in the temple. At least the three main characters, Rabbi Yehoshua, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehuda, they were all in the temple. But they were dead by the time Yehuda Hanasi was born. He's going to be born about, they were pretty old when the debate takes place, probably in their 60s, 70s. And he's not going to be born for another 50, 60 years. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi answered this argument in support of the opinion of Ben Batera. No, if you stated the rule in the case of the 13th of Nisan, even part of which day is not suitable for offering the Passover sacrifice under the correct designation. Notice he didn't say under a different designation. Will you state the same rule for the dawn of the 14th of Nisan, part of which day is suitable for offering the Passover sacrifice under the correct designation? Since part of that date is suitable, if he slaughtered it at dawn on the 14th of Nisan, not under the proper designation, it surely should be deemed invalid. Whoa, that rule, somewhere between 180 and 200 Common Era, became Halakhic. So in 30 Common Era, was it legal? You bet your bottom britches it was. It really was legal. And it was according to the Halakha. And they were interpreting that by the 14th of Nisan, the Passover lamb had to be slain. It could not be slain after that point when we got to the 15th. Okay? So we see what Yeshua is doing. It is a Passover Seder. I mean, we could go through and give you all the elements about leaning, dipping, and so forth. But I hope that you're able to follow and that this makes sense and it answers a big question. People, if you have enjoyed this, please like it. It helps us. If you're not registered or subscribed, please do that and please follow us. Okay? Shalom, shalom. Hag Sameach.
לא שומעים! Amen.